Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Hone Your Speaker Skills, how to be a better speaker. What are we talking about this week? Well, last week, if you remember, we're going through the anatomy of a good story. Narrative, whether you're talking about it on the page or whether you're talking about it out loud in front of an audience. What are the elements of a good story that are going to keep your audience engaged, coming along with you? Last week, we spoke about the protagonist, the hero, and that can be you, it can be one of your clients, it can be a composite of your clients. Whatever it is whoever it is, I should say, that's going to illustrate the point you want to get across. Always tell a story behind a point. So as you're getting a point across, tell a story to back it up. So last week we looked at who is it that you're speaking to? Who's your target audience? Because the story has to engage with them. Ideally, you are bringing them on the journey with you or your protagonist and making them the hero in their own mind. That was the hero. Great. Yay. But who's the baddie? We've got to have a baddie. Okay, somebody to cheer, somebody to throw rocks at, always the balance, if you will, of those two elements. Now, there's also a third element in there, which I want to cover today as well, which is the conflict. So we've got the hero, we've got the thing that you're fighting against. Now, that could be a person, it could be a situation. So, as I said a couple of weeks ago, it might be a cancer journey, in which case the baddie would be cancer. It could be you've lost your job. In that case, it could be the redundancy situation. You could even have your boss if it was constructive dismissal. Whatever it is, that could be a person or it could be a situation. Okay, but that's something that the antagonist is up against. That's the thing that we want to boom at. Yay for the hero, boo for the baddie. So that's that side of it. But I mentioned also conflict. What do I mean by that? Well, yes, you've got a hero, you've got a villain, but what's the thing that's the issue? Because, okay, let me unpack this for a second here. We've got, oh, is it gone? Is it gone? Is it gone? I'm there, honestly. I have prepared this. The conflict. Let me give you an example. When I was 2, I had an abandonment experience in hospital, which set in motion that thought that my voice doesn't matter. That was the decision I made at that age. Now, that particular decision, that internal script, as I call them, that went in tandem with, well, if my voice doesn't matter and nobody else comes to me, then I've got to do it myself. If you would imagine the little 2-year-old going, me do it, rather vehemently, except that little 2-year-old is still hanging around. So the illustrating point I've got on this one is I'm kind of the hero, and the issue, the baddie, if you will, is the fact that I wasn't very well. Let's just say the world was falling out of my bottom. Here I am in Kuala Lumpur, in an area that, in a health system I do not know. So the conflict for me was, yes, my baddie was the diarrhea, but the conflict was, how do I get out of this? What do I need to do? Because on the one hand, I've got this little 2-year-old ruling the roost going, me do it, I can handle it, when clearly I couldn't. So the conflict for me was that internal dialogue, if you will, between the I can handle it and, well, actually, no, you can't. You need to ask for help. So can you see how the baddie and the conflict may not be one and the same thing? So this is where in your story, you make it clear who the hero is, who the villain is, and what is the conflict between the two of them. Does this make sense for you? Let me give you another example, another personal example. And this one's a bit more fun. The hero, moi, was at a networking meeting. My first networking meeting having arrived in Australia. And this lady came up and complimented me on my pants. Well, I went bright red, excused myself and went to the ladies because I thought she was telling me that my flies were undone. Because in the UK, pants are what you wear next to your skin. I went to the ladies, had a look. Everything was fine. What was going on? So I kind of recomposed myself and went back into the room. And somebody else who had seen this little scenario playing out sidled up to me and said, you know, she was talking about your trousers, don't you? Well, I went bright red again. Now, the conflict there was I didn't understand that pants in Australia meant trousers. Had I been in the US, absolutely I'd have known, but I didn't know that. So the enemy, in a way, the baddie at that point, was actually my lack of cultural understanding, those cultural references that tripped me up. But the conflict was not knowing that. And the internal script of how could I have been so stupid? But I didn't know. So do you see we've got the hero, or in this case, a bit of an anti-hero, the hero, the baddie, the situation here with the networking meeting that I got very embarrassed at. And the conflict was the internal script, the understanding about the cultural reference. So there you are. I've given you two examples. One where the baddie is a person, and one where the baddie is... Actually, the first one was a baddie. There was the situation again, wasn't it? That was the diarrhea issue. Let me see if I can come up with one that is a real person. So if, for instance, you have been the subject of bullying, for example, then you as the hero have your baddie as whoever has been bullying you. Now, that can be specific people. Or in a bullying situation, it could be specific people. It could be a culture. Do you see where I'm going with this? Definitely have your hero as a person, someone that your audience can relate to. Your examples will give a story behind the point that you're making, whether it be about bullying, whether it be about cultural references, whether it be about asking for help. Those are all the baddies, the conflicts going on inside you and the baddie that we can rail against. Those three elements are really important to a good story. The goodie, the baddie, and the conflict between them. Okay, that's what I've got for you this week. So as you're thinking about your stories, do you remember last week we were talking about creating almost like a story bank, having a group of stories, a bank of stories that you can pull on when you're giving a talk, when you're writing your story, when you're writing a narrative in the book that gives the example that's going to be backing up what you're saying, backing up the point that you're making, and is going to be relatable. You know the purpose behind telling this story. And that's why you know the people it's going to be you're talking to, and those characters and that storyline has to be relatable, that you can draw the audience in to be the hero of their own story. Take them along with you. How would you feel if you were in that situation where the world was falling out of your bottom? What would you have done? Okay, so you're drawing them into the conversation, you're drawing them into the story, and they want to know what happens next. Come back next week and we'll tell you a bit more about that. Next week, we're going to start in on looking at the resolution. We've got the hero, we've got the baddie, we've got the conflict. We've got to have a resolution. We can't leave it at that conflict. Okay, so that's what I've got for you this week. I trust that that's been useful. Do let me know how you get on with your stories. And if you want to join in and tell us a bit more about those stories, comment in the comments here. Do like and subscribe to this channel. That way you'll get a ping that there's one coming up. There's one going live. My aim is to get these on a regular basis from here on in. I will be in this time zone for the next 4 months. So this is why I'm going to do it. I'm committing to doing it at this time. Okay, have an awesome week. See you next week. Go and tell some wonderful stories. For now, bye from me.